We've been talking a lot about loans lately, rates, terms, payments, etc. Monthly interest rates, credit cards are a type of loan, a revolving type of loan, right? The kind where you have a established principal and the same monthly payment each month are called installments. We're talking about another installment loan today, which is a very specialized one, and it's a mortgage. Yep. Or any real estate.
This is like the most hopeful class.
Think?
Like, I don't need to know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but I do need to know how to sign a check.
The check stuff, you notice I de-emphasized that a little bit, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I gave it to you, but I have a feeling that might end up going by the wayside at some point, not too long from now. But they're still out and available. You should know how to write them.
Yeah, you should know how loans work.
Yeah.
Like,
And the check, you know, it's nice to have written the check, and that way you have a record of the check, right? You can,
yeah.
the bank keeps a copy of that, and if you have the checkbook with the copies, you can say, no, I wrote this check on this day, and here's the evidence. You know, I don't know. But mortgages, they're a loan designed to purchase a house or a building, a business, you know, structure, or any kind of just land. It's called real estate, right? And it's a very legal and tedious procedure. The paperwork for a mortgage is enormous. So what a mortgage is, it is a loan, and it's a public record, okay, for the purchase of real estate.
You get a mortgage for your house?
Yeah. Okay, so it's not only a loan, it's a loan and public record.
Let's say like Bill Gates can't straight up buy a house.
Of real estate purchase. Well, and even if you pay cash, you don't even need a loan, you still have to go through the whole public record thing and have the attorneys and things will still have to be involved. There's a lot of paperwork. And I was trying to find my loan, because we did recently, a couple of years ago, we refinanced our mortgage, get a lower rate, and wanted to build a garage and whatnot. And I was,
When did you get your house?
hmm?
How long did you get your house? She's still been paying off for 20 years.
Yeah, but it pays down, right? And we had enough equity built in. What I mean by equity is that the value of the home compared to how much you owe on it. There was a little gap there, so we were able to borrow more against that equity, and then they gave us cash, right, to be able to build an addition. Hmm?
When are you going to get off? 20 years.
Somewhere in that range. So there are many documents involved, many documents and procedures. All right, so when we talked a little bit about regular loans, you have that TIL, the Truth in Lending Statement. That's one document, and I showed you, when I showed you a sample of it, that was a sample of it from a mortgage, and it was quite in-depth and involved more than a regular loan. And there are so many other documents that go along with that, especially if it's like, you know, like what's called a VA loan or a FHA loan or something like that. There's additional documentation. And when I say public record, it's recorded in a local courthouse somewhere. Doesn't matter, like anybody can access the information about who owns the house and where it is, details and whatnot. It's a public record of your ownership of that home. So attorneys are involved. It's pretty expensive, right? Closing, you have to sit down at a formal closing with you and the bank representative and attorneys. But before that, they have to do, the attorneys do title searches to make sure the title to the home is clear before, you know, they transfer ownership and that kind of thing. Get a history of the transfers of ownership back even hundreds of years, you know. So it's pretty involved. And if I can find those documents, maybe I'll scan a bunch of them and put them up on the thing here tomorrow for you, just give you a taste of it, you know. So you must use attorneys. Your home has to be appraised, so you have appraisers. So must use attorneys And when I worked at the bank, I used to do a lot of these mortgages, and I do a lot of the attorneys around town and work with them on a regular basis. Appraisers, court clerks. Bank officers, and that was me. I was one of the bank officers.
So you enforce the law.
No, not a police officer, an officer of the bank.
You're an officer of
Do
the
you have a
bank.
badge?
No, not that kind of officer. It wasn't, it's not,
You can't get a badge.
there's no badge. I had a tie, wore a
You're not a
tie.
bank
I
officer.
had a suit and a tie that I wear every day.
You're not officer. You're not an officer.
So probably I would recommend that you all, after class sometime, take a moment and do a Google search for the definition of the term officer. There's multiple definitions. One of them, of course, is a police officer, someone in a position of authority to enforce the law. That's why they put the word police in front of it, so it's a specific type of officer. But there are also officers in a bank. There's corporate officers, like the CEO of a chief executive officer of a corporation is an officer. There's a CIO, chief information officer, the CFO, the chief financial officer of the corporation, etc.
You all get badges.
They're officers. Nope, they get ties. They have to buy their own tie, not a badge. Okay. Now you also have to, when you own property, whether it's a house or not, there are real estate taxes that have to be paid every year. Okay, and that gets handled in the mortgage as well, in the mortgage closing. So real estate taxes involved. And that includes like local, regular property tax, school tax. Everyone in Waverly has to pay property tax to the village of Waverly, and has to pay school tax to the Waverly Central School District, right? And then there's the closing. We've got to pay the attorneys, right? You got to pay the appraisers who appraise the home, right? They have to appraise it.
There's a lot of greedy people.
That's not greed. There's nothing greedy about that.
Everybody wants to buy your money.
Huh?
Everybody wants to buy your money.
Well, you don't have to take out a mortgage. But if you do, it's a big amount of money, right? And the appraisers are there to make sure, okay, let's say you want to borrow $200,000 for a house, but the appraiser, and this is a person who's expert in that field, they do this all the time, appraise home values, says it's only worth $150,000. Well, the bank's not going to loan you $200,000 because, that's more than the home is worth, right? And court clerks have to record things, and the attorneys do a lot of work when it comes to a mortgage. Okay. Now, usually with a mortgage, banks will require you, the borrower, to have at least 20% of the purchase price as a down payment, like share the risk. Okay. Most of the time, in a regular mortgage, the bank will loan up to 80% of the appraised value.
What if I had 100%?
Well, then you wouldn't even need the bank involved. You still would need the attorneys, right, and the court clerks. And you probably want to get your own appraiser to make sure.
Pay with cash.
Yeah. Huh?
Just pay it with cash.
Oh, yeah, because it still has to, it's a matter of, you cannot transfer property without it being a matter of public record. That's the law everywhere, and that's on the planet pretty much, huh?
Even if you have the cash and you're gonna probably need the bank, you just have to pay all them people.
Yeah.
No. If you're not taking out a loan for it, then you're really not going to have the bank involved. Why,
Unless
there would-
you need the bank if you have to pay all them people.
Oh, you're going to take a loan out to pay them? Well, then that would be probably just like a simple personal loan, you
Yeah.
take out, and that would be one document, the loan application, and then the till, and then the loan agreement, right? So usually, banks require at least 20% down payment. Okay, and that's a risk sharing thing, right? No bank wants to be on the hook for the entire risk of the transaction, right? Even if you want to start a business and take out a business loan, and you say, I need $100,000 to start this business. The bank will not loan up everything. They're not gonna, then they're taking all the risk. What's that?
Once the bank goes out of business.
FDIC insurance. We picked up.
Yeah, but what this?
If they go out of business and they're holding a mortgage, like who do you pay?
Yeah.
If they would go out of business and the mortgage gets sold to another bank.
Uh,
So mortgages get sold to, it's almost like it's a thing, yeah, it's almost like a stock. You can buy and sell mortgages at the bank. You can pool them into a group of mortgages with a certain risk level and a certain interest rate on them, right? And banks will purchase and sell. And that is actually, I won't get into it now, time later. The market crash in 2008 had to do with high-risk mortgages getting bought and sold, and then finally coming to the fact that these high-risk mortgages weren't getting paid and being defaulted on, and it just crushed everything. But anyway, so there's some other terms on page 409. Let's go to page 409. Look here. What else they have on there?
market.
So there's the market value of a house, right? There's a, and that's what the appraiser will see. And then there's, so for the purposes of property taxes, we'll get into that a little bit. There's an assessed value. So the village of Waverly, the town of Barton, I think they went to the town of Barton now, has an assessor, a public assessor. Now their assessed value of a home for tax purposes, right? Because you got to pay a certain percentage of the home value as taxes every year. Is usually going to be quite a bit less, you know, for political reasons, than the actual market value, right? You can either pay like a percent of the assessed value, in some places have you pay like what's called a mill rate, like, you know, you have to pay $20 for every $1,000 of assessed value or something like that. It varies, so you can get a little confusing sometimes. What else they have on there? Down payment, we talked about that. Oh yeah, so in 409, there's a couple different ways to do the interest rate. There's a fixed rate mortgage. So the interest rate, as you can imagine, is fixed throughout the life of the loan and never changes. You know, that's safe, right? And then there's an ARM, A-R-M, an adjustable rate mortgage. A lot of people will take those out, use an adjustable rate mortgage, and the bank can change the rate on your mortgage. Depends on how the agreement's written, like every 6 months or every 2 years. You'll know at the closing, right? Or before you get to the closing, how often they could change it. And when they change it, they can either go up or go down based on current market rates, right? So I would say right now, just a little bit of the side, if you were thinking about taking out a mortgage, knowing what you know, and we talked about current interest rates today, would you think that an adjustable rate mortgage would be smart? Right, because like rates are so incredibly historically low right now, rock bottom. If it's going to change, what's like the only possibility?
Shoot up.
Up, right? Right? So a lot of people thinking, okay, adjustable rate mortgage, the initial rate is usually quite a bit lower than a fixed rate mortgage, right? So that sounds pretty good to them. So I was about where's it going to go now, right? So like 10 years from now, you might have had a rate of 2.5%, and 10 years from now, the whole world economy changes, and now all of a sudden it's up to 8-10%. You're going to go, oh my God, my payments go through the roof now, and it's God. So probably now a good time to have gotten an adjustable rate mortgage, I would say, would be back like in the late 70s, early 80s, where instead of interest rates being around 2 or 3% for things. For a mortgage, they were closer to 20. That was a bad time. You couldn't even get gasoline back then. Fuel shortages and interest rates through the roof. So back then, maybe an ARM, adjustable rate, would have been smart. Right now, I would say a fixed rate would be the smart way to go. Anyway, what else is on there? That foreclosure, I bet you can guess what that is. That's like the equivalent of a repossession. You know, if you don't pay your car loan, the bank can foreclose on your house. Banks don't want to do that. They really don't. You know why?
In the house.
Yeah. Are banks in the real estate business? No, they're not really. So like if the bank has to foreclose, a lot of people think that the bank just wants your house. You know, I've heard that people say, just want. No. they're not really set up for that. It's not, they don't really have the personnel to do that efficiently. And the last thing you want to do is foreclose and take a house and have to try and sell the thing on a market for less than it's worth, right? So most of the time they'll work with you as much as possible, you know, to help you, you know, make payments, smaller payments, bigger payments when you can, that kind of thing. But they don't want, you know, as a baby, the last thing you want to do is foreclose on a house. There's nothing but a hassle for the bank. If somebody talks to you about, oh, the bank just wants my house, just say anything, just know in your head. Because I'm not, you know, they're not in the real estate business, they're in the mortgage business, right? Okay. Was there anything else on that page? Probably as I go along, and on homeowners insurance over on the next page, you are, like any mortgage, they are absolutely going to require you to have insurance on the home, obviously. So that's a big loan, that's their collateral, right, to secure that loan and mitigate their risk. And if it burns to the ground and you don't pay the loan, then what are they going to foreclose on? A pile of ashes, right? Okay, so you will have to get homeowner insurance. Now, some banks will require what's called private mortgage insurance. I don't know if they put that in here.
Yeah,
Was it? Yeah, that's not that common. So what private mortgage insurance is like an insurance taken out, like if for some reason, like you need your job, get injured, you can't make your payments. That's an insurance. Right? You hurt, pay your bills, right? Yeah. So you probably never paid attention. But the mortgage insurance will pay your mortgage payments.
My dad has that on his car. Because he took out a loan for his car.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. Like a loan for, like an auto loan protection thing, yeah.
Yeah. Or if he loses his job, like he's sickness or something.
Right. Now that costs a little extra, right? There's a fee for that, but you know, sometimes people like to pay that fee just for the peace of mind, right? And that's the trade-off. But usually if a bank requires that, I don't remember ever requiring anyone when I was in that business to do that, but my guess is it would be more like if you were kind of on the verge of the credit score cutoff and whatnot, as opposed to where it might be an issue for you, you know, they would say, no, we want this. But that's not as common, I think, as the book laid out here anyway. And that's some of it. That's not all of it, okay? But anyway, let's go on to look at some examples here now. And we're going to skip a couple. We're not going to do 2 or 6. So let's take a look at examples, okay? We'll talk about escrow in a minute. You've heard the term escrow? We'll talk about it in a second. All right, example 1. Carly, what's happening with example 1?
Mother is planning to buy a home. She asks for money for a down payment on it. She sees a home she would like and computes that she would need to borrow $190,000 from the bank over a 30-year period. The APR is 6.4. What will be her total interest for 3 years?
Well, we've done this quite a few times, haven't we? The total interest, or I call it the finance charge. We're going to figure out what the payment is, multiply the payment by 30 years times 12, and then subtract the original amount. But it's going to be interesting to do it here, because you're going to see something with the interest payment or the total finance charge on a mortgage. Might surprise you a little bit. But they're using a monthly payment formula. You guys have already demonstrated you can use that. So how about we use the TVM? Well, let's get better, Carly. Right? And when we do, I'm not going to go through it, right? But when you do, you get a payment, you put all that stuff in there, of $1888.46. Is that what they got in the book there? That juicy formula? Yep. All right. So let's figure out what the total of all these payments are over 30 years. Okay. And what was the interest rate on that? 6.4. That's a little heavy for today. But so it's a 30-year mortgage, though, right? You imagine that the longer the mortgage term, the higher the interest rate the bank would charge. Why is that, by the way? Why would the bank charge you a higher rate for a 30-year mortgage versus, say, a 10-year mortgage?
Is it 1,188 or
Did I miss something?
I think it's-
What's it supposed to be?
I got 1,188.
188, forgot the one. Erase.
Is it because you have the money through loan so longer? As long as the bank doesn't have their money for.
Okay, then what's the peril for the bank? Well, they're gonna make more, right, more, they're gonna get more interest at the end.
Because they're going to use the money for longer.
Right, but why is that a higher risk for the bank? Well, anything could happen, right? Like the longer the loan term goes out, first of all, yeah, so you're right? You're talking about when I asked earlier in the market period, would you rather have $1 now or 6 months from now?
Yeah.
Is it worth more now? But 6 months from now, I'll need more than $1 from you, if that's what you're gonna pay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, like that, and also, over the course of 30 years, there's more of a chance of something happening where you end up defaulting on the loan, right? That makes sense? Whereby if it's only 10 years, well, number one, they're getting their money a little sooner, right? A little bit less risk, right? 10 years over 30 years for the bank, okay? So lower rate. So the longer the term, the higher the rate in general, okay? So let's multiply this out. So we've done this a million times. I keep forgetting that one. Times 30 years, times 12 times a year. Oh, what does that come to? Well, let's just do, well, the original was not 190,000, right? Let's just do that. You guys get what I'm doing here, right? I'm just doing it all in one big movement here. All right. So I think it comes to the finance charge of $237,845.60. Right? This is total interest.
I just round. Why did my calculator do round?
Yes, that's what we thought.
Somewhere in the settings.
237,846.
Hmm?
Mine gives me 237,846.
Somewhere in your settings and document settings. Yeah. Look at how much did they borrow? 190,000.
Yeah.
At the end of the 30 years, they'll have paid back the 190,000 plus. Look at how much interest. Think about that for a minute.
How much total interest?
That's just the interest you pay back on a mortgage. And then so add 190,000 to that. Okay?
There's more money.
It is. Well, it's over 30 years, but it's still a lot of money, right?
Why can't you just pay 100,000? Like, I know why.
If you have it, right? Otherwise, you'd have to save up for it. We did that stuff earlier in the market period, right? Before, I want a guitar, but I had to save for 2 years, or you can borrow and get it now. So this is the convenience cost to you of getting the home now, right? But most people will pay, accept that as a part of life, right? Unless you have 190,000 like that old man I told you about that came in and paid cash for all his life, That's really rare. One time I saw that, all my life. But that's the convenient fee you pay for getting your money now and spreading it over 30 years. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I wonder how that do things in college.
You want?
I wonder how they do things in college.
Maybe you didn't. Not everybody has to go to college.
Yeah, but like, how do you make money?
You can make money without going to college.
Right?
Sure can.
Old man.
No, actually, less rare than you think. Less rare than you think. To college, especially with the costs they are now, it might be, put some thought into it. It almost is not worthwhile for some people, right? There's trade schools, there's other ways you can learn skills, start your own business, that kind of thing. There's other options in college. I hate to see everyone, it's almost like they lock you gotta go to college. I encourage it, obviously, right? But how many times does someone graduate from college with $50,000 in debt and they can't get a job? or they get a job that doesn't pay enough to cover their debt. So, you know, stuff to think about. And by the way, in that truth in lending statement, this will be included, right? So it's all up front. There's no surprises, right? That is, because I showed you that till, right? That number would be there, and then they told the two up, so the total payback, that plus the 190,000, okay? All right. So that's just the monthly payment. Let's talk about escrow now. So I told you there's other things involved in a house. Every year you have to pay property tax and school tax and all that stuff, right? And you have to have insurance, okay? And so you could pay all that separately when it all comes due, or you could, through the bank, in addition to this monthly payment, right, you could divide all those other costs by 12 once a year, by 6 if it's twice a year, and add those monthly portions of it to your principal and interest payment, okay? And then the bank won't take care of paying your property tax for you. They will send a check to the village of Ware. Mine does that. I do an escrow, so I don't have to really, like, you know, when my tax bill comes due, sometimes it's, you know, $1,500. I don't want to have to be caught with my pants down. Oh my God, I forgot to say this. What am I going to do? Yeah. You know, so every month, part of my mortgage payment, in addition to the principal and interest part of it, goes into an account, an escrow account, and the bank pays all that, and they pay my homeowner's insurance as well, right? So it's an increase in your monthly payment, okay? An increase in your monthly payment of principal and interest, okay? Placed into an account. It's placed to an escrow account with the bank. Okay? And it's used to pay real estate taxes and insurance. I'll just use capital RE for real estate taxes. And they're usually annual. Put that in parentheses, okay? And insurance. And that's usually semi-annual, every 6 months. Right? So you're not really paying any more. I mean, you have to pay that money anyway. But it's really convenient to just have it split up, you know, in a monthly, a little bit extra each month on your mortgage payment, and then you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't cost you any more, but then you're not surprised, right? When they send you the bill. And if you don't pay those real estate taxes, there's another entity that can come and take your house, okay?
What about?
They will come and take it. If you get too far behind in this, the sheriff will come and put a notice on your door, eviction notice, foreclosure notice, and they will sell it in an auction for cheap, huh?
What about after you buy the house and you paid all your loans?
You still have, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, even after your mortgage is paid off, you still have to pay real estate taxes.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, can you still have that?
The escrow account, yeah, you can still send that to the bank and have them take care of it for you, but you still have to pay. As long as you own property in any region in the country, they have local real estate taxes that you have to pay, okay? Whether you have a mortgage on it or not, okay? And I highly recommend escrow to everybody. You know, some people say, oh, it makes my payment so much bigger. Well, the point is, you gotta pay that anyway, right? And so I can go online and I can look at my mortgage balance, and I can also I can check my escrow balance to see how much is in there, how much they paid out, you know, to the village of Waverly and when and whatnot, okay? All right, so that's what escrow is. Let's go, we're gonna skip example 2. Let's go to example 3. I think it's an escrow calculation. Let's go over to page 412. All right, so example 3. Kevin and somebody, they've got a mortgage with some bank, who cares? They require them to pay homeowner insurance, property taxes, and mortgage. So this bank is requiring an escrow. I know our bank didn't require it, but almost nobody said no to it, right? We didn't make it mandatory. The monthly mortgage payment is $1233.56, so that's their principal and interest, okay? So their payment, right, and I'll just do P and I for principal and interest, was, how much was it? 1,080? No, what am I, I'm not the wrong thing. Hang on. 1233.56, right? 1233.56. That's a regular mortgage payment, principal and interest. Now they have a semi-annual tax bill, property tax. Okay, semi-annual means every 6 months. So semi-annual tax bill. And that was 5206, pretty steep. They must have a lot of property based on the value of the property. And their insurance bill, annual insurance, right? It's usually semi-annual, but no, they're going with annual. They switched both of them, whatever. It matters not. That's 1,080. Okay, a year. So, how much is the monthly payment now to National Trust? Well, we just have to convert these two guys. So this is already monthly, right? And we just need to convert these to monthly. All right, so let's go over semi-annual tax, right? And what are we going to do? Divide it by what? 6, yeah. Divided by 6. What's that give you? 867.67. 867.67, right? And the annual insurance, we're going to divide that by what? 12, it's annual, right? And that should come to $90. Okay? So their total payment plus escrow. So their payment, go over here, monthly payment plus escrow payment is going to be all three of those added together, right? $1233.56. I think I'll go vertically here. Plus 867.67. I keep, why do I do that? And then what was it? $90. So $21.91 per month. Okay. And again, yeah, that's quite a bit higher than $1233. But it's not like you wouldn't have to pay all that at some point anyway. You have to, okay? But then they'll take care of all the taxes and insurance for you. Well, the bank's not making money on it. They're not keeping this. The bank doesn't keep that.
No, the people who are paying to pay for stuff.
Oh, it's not outrageous for mortgage.
Is that how much you pay per month?
No, mine's so it's less than 1,000.
That's pretty good. If you think about it, if you were renting it somewhere, it'd be about there.
Right, because when you're renting, somebody who owns the building is paying principal and interest and taxes and insurance, right? So, I mean, you got to cover that and a little bit more to make it worth the right while. Why would they rent if they're just going to break even? Okay, let's talk about some ratios that the bank looks at to consider you worthy or not, you know, to loan money to for a mortgage. So not only your credit report, right? We talked about that. They take a look at your credit score, how much you earn, right? Your capacity to pay it back. So there are certain ratios banks will look at, and they like to have these ratios, you know, less than some certain percentage to feel safe about loaning you money. So one of the first ones the book addresses here is called the front end ratio. And I didn't really do this ratio. We did a back end ratio or debt to income ratio. Get to that later. So this is part of the bank's approval process, right? So what that is your monthly housing expense, okay? Everything you pay for housing, you know, mortgage and escrow and all that stuff and insurance, okay? Divided by your gross monthly income, right? So it's monthly housing expense, right? Not just the principal interest payment, all of it, taxes, insurance, the whole thing, okay? Divided by your gross monthly income. What do I mean by gross? Huh? No, that's net. That's net. That's after tax.
So then gross is with the tax.
Yeah, before taxes are taken out. Gross is before taxes are taken out. Right? And the reason it is, right? I mean, so they could adjust the ratio times 100. Like, everybody pays a different percentage in taxes, right? And so if they went by net, it would be really complicated and confusing for the bank to figure out, right? So if they went by net, then, you know, they might want the ratio like a little bit smaller, right? But if they go by gross, then they don't have to compare people who pay 20% interest to people who pay 30 or tax, income tax to 30%, right? So this kind of covers everybody, and they make the ratio different to adjust for that. Okay, so it's your income before taxes are taken out, right? And banks usually prefer, okay, and this varies from bank to bank, less than 28% for this ratio. I'll just do less than 28%. Okay? Less than 28%. And this kind of gives them a sense of, can you afford this mortgage payment or not? Follow me? And if it's greater than 28%, you know, we're going to think twice about loaning you the money. Some other things really probably need to be in place if that's the case. All right. So it's not just your credit report; it's your income, and this particular ratio. There's other ones we'll get to later. Okay. By the way, I think they talk about AG. You ever heard of AGI? Anybody done their taxes yet? 1040 file taxes. They have what's called an adjusted gross income, or AGI, right? Adjusted gross income, AGI. So that's a number on your yearly tax 1040 form to the IRS. And there's a particular line that says your adjusted gross income is, and that's the number that they'll use and divide it by 12, right? Okay. Let's go to example 4. Next page. Everybody have this? I'm going to flip pages. You got this, Carly?
Yeah.
Let's go over to example 4. All right, Dylan, read example 4 there, would you, buddy?
Tom and Kira Courtney are considering buying a house and are researching the potential cost. Their adjusted gross income is $135,000. The monthly mortgage payment for the house they want to pay $1,133. The annual property taxes will be $1,400, and the home builder should pay a cost of $868. Will the bank loan $190,000?
We're gonna look at that back end ratio. So there's their AGI. And they have a property tax. And by the way, the AGI per month. Let's get that per month. So we'll take that and divide it by 12. 135, 511 divided by 12. All right, put that in your calculator. Should get 11,292.58 per month. 11,292.58 per month. All right. So that's your monthly AGI. Your tax one will have your annual AGI. Okay. So let's get all the monthly housing expenses now. And that includes property tax, real estate tax, right? Property tax. And that was $9,400 annually, right? So we'll go ahead and divide that by 12. Okay. And that's $783.33. What else was there? Their insurance, homeowners insurance. That was $876. Was that annually? Yeah. Right. That's $73. I'll just put per month. Per month. All right. And then their mortgage payment, the actual principal and interest, part of what their payment would be if they take out this loan. This payment. It was $1,233. Right? So let's do their front end ratio. We have so these are all the monthly housing expenses, right? Per month. That's their AGI per month. So let's get the top part, the housing expenses. That's going to be let's take the first one there, 783.33. So the front end, I'll just do FE ratio, will be 783.33 plus 73, right? And then plus 1233 divided by the monthly AGI. What was that? 11,292.58. Times 100. And take my word for it, it should come out to 18.5%. So that's their front end ratio. Will this cause a denial by the bank? No. Is the bank going to give them a loan now? Yes. Hold on. I'm very careful about how I ask that. I said, will this specifically cause the bank to deny them? No. There's other things that could cause it, right? So that's why I'm specific about asking that way, right? Like maybe now the bank did that, and now maybe the credit score just popped up and said, oh, 570. That's a nice front end ratio, but I don't think so, right? So I would,
Make it $160,000 a year. That's your credit score.
it could, yeah, possible. 18.5 is less than percent, is less than 20, what did I say? Yeah, 28% more. Right? So this will not cause a denial. This will not cause a denial. You see how specific I'm being here? I'm not saying the bank will now give them the loan. There are other things in place. Stupid thing. Okay. other things that the bank looks at could cause a denial. It's just that this won't. Please don't think you'll automatically get the loan now. I got this one thing in place. Move on, what is the next thing, right? All right, one more ratio we'll look at, and this is the one I use most of the time. This was like easier to use. I think this is more of a better gauge than just the specific, just the homeowner's expenses ratio. And it's the book calls it a back end ratio. And this is good note card stuff, by the way. The back end or BE ratio. Right, we called it debt to income. That's the term we use. I think most banks use that. D to I, debt to income ratio, right? So this is a little more encompassing, right? This is all your monthly debt expenses, right? It's all, not just the homeowners ones, monthly debt payments, including the mortgage one you're about to embark on, right? Divided by, again, AGI, monthly, times 100. Okay? That's all. So we always said, like, you know, when I would pull, when I was at the bank and I would pull a customer's credit report, I'd go down through the credit report, and I would take the numbers right off of there. I would take it, so if they got a MasterCard, they pay this much a month on, they got a car loan that's this much a month, right? I would pull them all right off the credit report. Because sometimes customers will, you know, leave things out. They'll give you like their version of what their monthly payments are. Sometimes they'll forget a couple of them, you know. So when I would pull their credit report, I'd say, oh, right? A little bit more there. You forget, oh, I forgot about that there. Yeah, that's right. I just paid that yesterday. Yeah, yeah, well, you know. It's not always. I mean, I joke about it, but sometimes it's like, I mean, sit down, like, you know, when you get to be 40, 50 years old, you probably have quite a few things out that you paid, you're just not thinking of everything. But, you know, we make sure. We make sure. So now, you might imagine that this ratio, the bank's probably going to be a little higher than 28%, because it's everything, right? So, and I think if I remember the number, we like to have it like below 36% or something like that, okay? So I would say banks prefer this to be less than 36%. A little bit higher than the other one, right? Because it's like all your debts. Now, guys, this does not include, you know, like your electric bill, water bill, and, you know, natural gas, none of that, no utilities or anything like that, okay? It's all just your monthly debt service payments, okay? Credit cards, car loans, personal loans, student loans. It does not include phone bills. No.
Why not? When you buy a phone?
That's not a debt, right? That's a.
Not putting my mom's credit. No.
All right. Well, okay. Stuff back, you know, what was not really in place back when I was in the bank was cell phone bills that rolled the phone in as part of like you get paid, add a certain amount of month to your monthly phone bill.
But like not including like the actual service. Like I mean like buying.
I'm gonna say that's not calculated in. I think that it's almost gonna be like a wash across the board for everybody these days. So I like thinking about it now, I'd almost be fine leaving that out. Right? Because a person can always just like cancel their phone if they have to. Right? I don't know. I don't think that would be enough. That's that. You're not really entering a loan agreement for that, are you? That's almost like that. You know what that's like? That's almost like store credit, kind of, which doesn't get reported. Yeah. Your phone bill is not going to go on your credit. Really, I'm about 95% sure.
Oh, this is a credit.
No.
My mom's mom's credit and stuff. She was
I'm gonna follow up on that. Right now, I'm gonna say no, but, since you're telling me that, I'm
She
gonna,
went to Verizon, got 3 phones, and she couldn't pay it.
uh-huh.
Her credit is really bad.
Or credit with Verizon, maybe.
Yes.
Well, just with Verizon, not to the credit bureaus out there, right? Not that the bank would see when they pull a credit report. Maybe it's just her Verizon credit.
I'll ask
Maybe
her.
Verizon said, maybe it's just Verizon said, all right, no, you kind of left us hanging the last time, we're not willing to do. Maybe it's just Verizon. But I'm curious actually now, because that wasn't really a thing when I was working at the bank. Maybe. I'm gonna look into it. So ask me again tomorrow, will you?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's go to example 5. We're gonna do this debt to income back end ratio. Mercedes, let's go on to example 5. Just cut to the details. I don't even want another name. Thanks, Dylan.
Considering to buy a house and need to pay down before the bank to lend them, their adjusted gross income is $166,988. Their monthly mortgage payment for the house they want would be $1,544. Their annual property taxes would be $9,888. The homeowner's insurance premium would cost them $1,007 per year. They have a $500 per month car loan, and their average monthly credit card bill is $5,100. Would the bank lend them $210,000?
Okay. What do I do there? I did something a little bit different here. All right, so their AGI income per month, so it's 166,988, right? And we'll divide that by 12. What does that give you? 13,916 a month. Got to get these monthly. The mortgage payment, what was that going to be? 1544? Huh? I didn't hear that. What? Oh, okay. I got you. That's already monthly. Taxes, that's once a year, 9888, right? So 9888 per year. So divided by 12, and it gives us 824 a month. And the insurance, 1,007 a year. Divide that by 12. And that comes to 84 a month. And the car, what was the car? I don't have that here. Somebody, oh, 510 per month. Okay, so the car is 510 per month. Oops. It's already monthly. And the credit cards were monthly 5,100. That's pretty steep. Okay. Well, let's figure out her back end or debt to income ratio. So her D to I, we're back end, and equal all this stuff here. So 1544, 824. Plus 84 plus 510 plus 5,100. All divided by her monthly AGI, which was 13,916. Multiply that by 100. You know, group that top and front. If you're doing like this, put that in parentheses, right? And you should find that it comes to 58%. Yeah, that's going to be a sticking point, right? That's significantly higher. You know, like if it came, you know, if the bank's limit is 36%, let's say maybe it came to 39 or 40%. Well, I would take a look at all their other parts of their life, right? Their credit report and everything else. You know, how long, and another thing is the length of time on your job, right? How steady are you with that? If everything else was just crystalline, beautiful, perfect, you know, they were like 39 or 40, I'd probably go ahead and make the loan for them. But in this case, they are not likely to get the loan. Not likely. And I'm phrasing this carefully too, right? Different banks had different tolerances. And this could get me into the 2008 real estate crash, by the way.
Sorry for the interruption. James Williams, please report to the middle school office.
Okay.
James Williams, please.
All right, so we got a couple of ratios we took a look at today. We're not going to look at example 6 and the whole balloon mortgage thing because I would just, that's not going to be a thing that hopefully you guys ever deal with. So I'm not going to waste your time with it. We kind of talked about it before, right? The payments are really low, and then your very last payment at the end of it is the rest of it. So, okay.